Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. And I think it's time we take all the knowledge that we've been building over the last several weeks on this channel and distill it down into one coherent video, one coherent strategy, one coherent plan to try to make this team as good as possible going forward. So, what we have on screen here is a spreadsheet that most of you will recognize. I made a video with this spreadsheet several weeks ago outlining a plan to clear roster space, clear up cap space, and then re-sign some of our outgoing free agents. So you can see that some of the steps are still here, the ones that we haven't done yet. Most of the ones that I wanted to do in terms of like releasing players have been done. Adams, Diggs, Monet. Disley was released as well, which I actually didn't have here. I thought we were going to be stuck with him because we didn't have any other tight ends, but we did go forward with the Disley release, so that's factored in as well. The current starting point for cap space, according to Spotrac, is 44.2. I know that Over the Cap has it as like 42 something, 42.1. So it's slightly different. I don't know who actually has the right number. I don't know exactly what logic they're using to get to their numbers, but I just went with a Spotrac number of 44.2. It doesn't make a big difference either way. Clearing an additional 2 million in cap space is trivial. You can just add void years. You can do there's so much stuff you can do. It's not even worth hassling over that amount of money, really. So what I have here is a starting point. I have some moves that I'd like to see the team still make in-house. And then I have, at the bottom of this spreadsheet, the new moves I'd like to make, which is signing players from other teams, bringing in players from other teams to bolster this current roster. So this is kind of like the second part of my offseason path. So let's go ahead and lay it out now. Let's go ahead and go over it and see how we feel about how the team would look for 2024 and beyond after these moves. I'll go ahead and rehash some of the in-house moves that I'd still like to see the team make. I would release Nick Bellore and D. Eskridge. It's over $4 million in cap space. I think that that money is worth more than having those two players on the team. Nick Bellore was kind of a locker room guy, and locker room's getting kind of torn up. The coaching staff's been almost completely replaced. I don't know what Bellore can do here. Eskridge goes without saying. So that gets you to, those two moves get you to 48.5 in cap space. I would extend Geno Smith to get his cap hit down to about 15 million. Saving 11.4 gets you to just about 60 million in cap space. And then I would extend Julian Love to free up about 3 million and get you to about 63. I would restructure DK Metcalf to free up about 5.9 and get you to about 68.9. And then I would restructure Michael Dixon to free up about 700,000 just for fun, because he's not going anywhere and because he's really good, and get you to 69.6 million in cap space. So that gets you to the outgoing free agents. I haven't really changed too much here. I still would re-sign Leonard Williams, first year cap at about 10 mil, same as it was for Draymond. Bobby Wagner, I would re-sign him unless, and this is a key distinction here, if Mike McDonald feels like Bobby Wagner would not work in his defense because he's too slow and too old now, then I think I would actually go ahead and bring back Jordan Brooks, because I feel like you can't lose both of those guys. You got to keep one. And I would prefer to keep Wagner because the cost would be far more reasonable and short term. But if Mike McDonald says, I can't make it work with Bobby even at 5 million, then I respect that. And I'm not a big Jordan Brooks fan, but if Mike McDonald feels like I can turn that guy into a Pro Bowl caliber player, then I can go with it. And the first year cap hit would probably only be a little bit more. It sounds like Brooks is going to get like 14 million per year or something like that, maybe 13. So that first year cap hit would probably be like 6. So it wouldn't change anything that much. Just change this -5 to a -6. Get you to about 54.6. Colby Parkinson, I would bring him back. 3 years, 20 million. First year cap hit of 4. Gets you to 50.6. Mario Edwards, I would bring him back. That might not be something you do until August, though, in fairness, right? That's something you do at the very end of the offseason when you realize you need one more rotational defensive lineman. Would only cost you like 1.1 million because of the veteran offset at that point. 49.5. I would tender Mike Jackson for 2.8 to get you to 46.7. I would tender Miles Adams, get you to 45.7. and then I would tender Ty Okada, get you to 44.9. So that is basically where we left off when I made this equivalent video several weeks ago, the tendering. So now we go ahead and look at the new stuff. One thing I did do is I removed re-signing Jake Curhan. After thinking about it, I don't think it really makes that much sense. I think we can do a little bit better. We probably need to do a little bit better. And at the end of the day, I don't want to have Jake Curhan as my backup behind Abe Lucas, with Abe Lucas having the injury issues that he's having. But other than that, everything else stayed the same, except I took off the things that have already happened. And yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at the free agents that I would bring in to make 2024 viable, while also making the future beyond that season viable. First guy I'm bringing in is Jadeveon Clowney. 7 million, 1 year, 7 million. He usually gets paid year to year. Spotrac says like 1 year, 7.2, so I went with basically that. Really good edge player all around. He gives you good run defense and good pass rush. Coming off a really nice year in Baltimore, 9.5 sacks. So I think the 1 year, 7 million is probably about right. And he gets to reunite with Mike McDonald, gets to come back to Seattle, where I know he liked it. I know he liked it here. I know the culture is completely different now because we have brand new coaches, but Jadeveon Clowney on 1 year, 7 million. You push Darrell Taylor out of here. You've got an edge rotation of Nwosu, Mafe, Clowney, and Derek Hall. So you can survive this year. You could survive the Nwosu injury like you couldn't last year. Last year, Nwosu got hurt. You had no contingency plan. Clowney gives you a contingency plan. Excuse me. So 1 year, 7 million, gets you down to about 37.9. Josey Jewell. I'd bring in Josey Jewell, 2 years, 14 million, first year cap at about 5 million. You can obviously structure the contract a little bit different if you want to, but 5 million first year cap hit, 9 million second year cap hit is usually the kind of thing you might see in this league. That gets you down to $32.9 million in cap space. We need linebackers, and this signing, Josey Jewell, would allow you to have it would allow you to have the freedom to not lean on a rookie. Like if we take Junior Colson, or we take Edgerrin Cooper, or we take Peyton Wilson, if they can do stuff as a rookie, great, but we're going to have some veterans in front of him so that we are not completely leaning on the rookie. So Jewell and Wagner, or Jewell and Brooks, either way, that's your starting inside linebackers. I think that'll work. I think that'll play, and it's only a 2-year commitment, so after 1 year, you could move on if you really wanted to. I would also sign Calais Campbell, 1 year, 5 million. Should be pretty reasonable given how old he is. I think he gets paid year to year now anyway, and he's still good. He can still play. Still a really good 3-4 end, which I think would complete our rotation at defensive end. You've got Draymond, you've got Leonard Williams, and you've got Calais Campbell and Mike Morris off the bench. Would be pretty much perfect. And we wouldn't have to really worry about either outside linebacker or edge going forward. So those positions would be buttoned up in the short term with some potential to be really good in the long term as well. I do think it would be about 5 million because he did come off a really good season in Atlanta, and he has a reputation. He just keeps going. He has a reputation for being one of those guys that just keeps going no matter what. So I don't think this is going to be the year he falls off. People have been predicting it for 4 or 5 years now. Doesn't happen. So that gets you to 27.9 million in cap space. I would bring in George Fant, our old buddy, George Fant, 1 year, 3 million, to back up Abe Lucas on the right side. We need a quality backup, a dependable backup for Mr. Abe Lucas. And I think Fant will fit the bill better than a guy like Curhan or Forsyth. We just need to protect ourselves until we figure out what's going on there. And by the way, Fant also serves as a capable left tackle backup. He's a swing tackle. He can even play a little bit of tight end, although I don't know how much he's going to be able to do that now. So Fant provides value on both sides, and he gives you that offensive line depth that we need to build here. 1 year, 3 million for Fant. That's what he got last year. I don't think he's going to get more, but I don't think he's going to get less because the cap went up. So 3 million for 1 year. They get you to 24.9 million in cap space. Jordan Fuller would be a safety that I pick up. I don't think he's going to be too expensive. 2 years, 8 million. First year cap hit of about 3 million. That gets you down to 21.9. I originally was going to have Taylor Rapp here, but he got signed multi-year to Buffalo yesterday. So he's off the market, but Jordan Fuller's still out there. There are a couple other guys that could have taken this spot just as easily, like Kevon Wallace would have been okay here. A guy like Kevin Byard, if you can afford him. I don't know what kind of money he's going to be looking for, Byard. But Fuller was the guy that I just slapped in here, and I think it'll be like 2 for 8. So that's your second multi-year deal. But again, it's going to be easy to get out of after 1 year if you really want to. I would sign Matt Hennessy, center in Atlanta. Hasn't played in 2 years, but last time he played, he was good. He was a good player, and I liked him coming out of the draft. I remember scouting him in the draft and really liking him a lot. And Atlanta, things were off to a good start. He had a good season 2 years ago, and then they decided to shelve him. And it feels like kind of like Aziz Al-Shaair, where Al-Shaair was a good player, but he was behind Greenlaw and Warner in San Fran, so he didn't get to play much. But he was a good player. I think that's what happened to Hennessy. He's a good player. Atlanta just decided to do better, and he hit the bricks because of it. I think he'll be cheap because he hasn't played in 2 years. 1 year, $1.7 million. So that gets you down to 20.2. And then I'm signing, finally, my final guy here would be Drew Sample. 1 year, $1.5 million. Basically, Vetman plus. He hasn't really done that much over the last several years. He hasn't really done it much in his career, so he should be just happy to get any kind of a contract at all. But I think he could help replace some of the blocking of Will Dissly at a much lower rate, and probably at this point be not that much worse of a pass catcher, because Dissly was not exactly capable of making the big plays in the passing game the way he was used to because of all the injuries he accrued. So 1 year, $1.5 million. That gets you down to $18.7 million. So $18.7 million. You're going to have to spend about $11 million, let's estimate, $11 million on your rookies, draft and UDFA, let's call it 11. And then you're going to have to spend about $3 million on a practice squad. So if you factor those two things together, that's $14 million. That gets you down to about $4.7 million in cap space after all these moves. That should be enough for an injury buffer, and you could also call that the trade buffer. Injury buffer plus trade buffer of 4.7. That should work, right? You could even stretch it a little bit further if you really wanted to, and I don't think we need to. I don't feel the need to do that. But you could say, okay, we're going to make our injury buffer just $3 million. And instead of having Bobby at 5, we're going to have Jordan Brooks with that first-year cap hit of 6. Or instead of Jordan Fuller, we're going to get Kevin Byard at a slightly higher rate. You could do that stuff. But I think this strategy allows for maximum flexibility going forward because all these guys are on 1-year deals. But I think all of them would live up to their billing. I didn't go and do anything crazy here. There are no 3-year deals. There are no 4-year deals. These guys just come in for 2024. They play. Most of them probably move on after the year. Maybe some of them get brought back for 2025. But it allows this team to kind of have a proof of concept year where if it works, great. But if it doesn't work, you haven't screwed yourself over for the next several years. So this is kind of the way I would go. I would not go all in. I wouldn't go all in on a guy like a Robert Hunt, like I know some people would be interested in doing. I wouldn't go all in on a guy like one of those big-time centers that's available now. Like I think Mitch Morse just got released. He's going to get a lot of money. I wouldn't go all in on anybody that's going to cost like 8 figures a year in free agency here. I would just kind of keep things in-house. I would go out and get guys who make sense but wouldn't cost a ton and see what happens with McDonald in this first year. And then if things go well, maybe you get hot at the end and make a run, but more than likely, you're going to go into 2025 feeling like, all right, we can go now. We're going to have more cap space because some of the stuff is going to come off. We're going to be able to do some more things next offseason. Now that we know we have a good coach and we have a good infrastructure, a good offensive coordinator, good play caller, etc., let's go for it. So let me know what you guys think of the path. I know there's going to be some controversy here, of course, but these would be the 7 free agents that I'm targeting. Nothing too crazy, nothing too bold, just trying to make the team a little bit better now so we get an idea of what this new coaching staff is capable of when you give them something to work with, even if it isn't the best stuff. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.